because on average, a person has 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 feet, 2 legs, etc. And now that's offensive. So now it's, you're not disabled. You're just differently abled. That's not true.
I like how the first half was like, oh, you know, the wacky libs. Yeah, anything you say, they consider ableist. You know, I just want to say some of the most offensive possible things I can about John Fetterman right now. Is that ableist in any way, shape, or form?
From timcast.com, supporters double down on Fetterman, accuse critics of ableism and bullying. Did you guys see the View clips? When they were like, I thought the Hippocratic Oath was do no harm. Dr. Oz was bullying Fetterman. Bullying? He was having a debate. It's a political debate. He's supposed to be like, you're wrong, John. At any point, did Dr. Oz say Fetterman has brain damage?
No.
What are they talking about? These people have lost the plot. They're willing to put in a guy who clearly his brain does not work. Welcome to modern.
Thanks, Dr. Pool. So can you go on? Like, is that the actual medical assessment? Yep. Thank you for coming into the office. So we have the results from the tests. Brain does not work. Yep. That's the official medical assessment. I don't know if everyone's seen it, by the way. Here's the speech that Fetterman gave the next day when not in a debate setting.
To be honest, doing that debate wasn't exactly easy. You know, knew it wasn't going to be easy after, you know, having a stroke after 5 months. In fact, I don't think that's ever been done before in American political history before, actually. You know, after that stroke, I got knocked down, but I got back up. And I'm going to fight for everyone in Pennsylvania who ever got knocked down, that ever had to get back up.
Wow, this sounds totally normal. This is actually very impressive for someone who just suffered a stroke. Wow, it's kind of weird how all of you lean so hard into like, oh, he's fucking got brain damage, cannot speak.
And let me tell you something else. What also something remarkable happened after that debate is that we've raised over more than $2 million after that debate.
Like, what was Dr. Oz's excuse? Because at least, you know, I could tell Fetterman was having difficulty speaking. There's no question about that. This is a human being who has just suffered a stroke and is currently under rehabilitation for that stroke. So, yes, actually, it's quite impressive that Fetterman is doing what Fetterman is doing, still trying to fight for the people of Pennsylvania. That's kind of the idea here. His ideas, though, at least weren't alongside like Dr. Oz's, who was like, I think a woman's bodily autonomy should be decided by her doctor, and local elected politicians. They should be in the room too. Maybe I should be in the room as well. Yeah, little Dr. Oz standing inside the room, telling you what you should be doing with your body. Would you like that, ladies? Does that sound fun? Like, what the fuck?
Politics, I suppose they hate you so much. And I mean this. I'm not trying to. There's not an emotional dig or anything. It's factual. They hate Republicans. They hate Trump. They hate MAGA to the degree that they would vote for someone like John Fetterman.
Did you watch the debate?
Oh,
Ian?
I absolutely watched the debate. It was tough to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're talking about somebody that's going to be one of 100 senators in the United States Senate potentially that said he's going to vote, you know, to break the filibuster, to end the legislative filibuster. And this is someone who cannot answer a question on his point of view for fracking and explain, were you lying then? Are you lying now? Or did your position evolve? We got no answer. I mean, we got a long pause, no answer. And for people to say, well, it's ableism. I mean, the same people that said, you know, when Mike Pence was debating Kamala Harris, you know, if he challenged her on something, well, then that was mansplaining, right? It's the same thing. If you're a conservative and you actually argue your points and they can somehow, you know, turn it into, well, we really can't argue with what you said, or that argument isn't really going to work. So we're going to, you know, say you're mansplaining, you're an.
So while I disagree with the fracking stuff, because fracking's fucking abysmal, I understand that to get elected, I guess in that region, you can't be anti-fracking. Seems to be the lay of the land, is what people are telling me. So all that being said, he may have been against it in the past. He isn't now because he thinks it's politically effective for him not to be. I disagree with it, but yeah, it was pretty clear. I am pro fracking. I don't know what else you need. Like if the gotcha was like, but in an interview 7 years ago, you said you were not for fracking. He's like, well, I'm for fracking. And so it's like, okay, you got what you wanted. Aren't you all super happy about that? Aren't you, Tim? Huh?
But then the words keep getting more and more verbose. The phrases get longer and longer. I think he mentions invalid. But then people are like, no, you can't say that. That means invalid. We can't say that. So then they create new words like retarded, but then apparently those become offensive. And now there's disabled, meaning you have a disability. It just meant like you didn't have your hand was injured, your foot was injured, your eye, your ear, because on average a person has 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 feet, 2 legs, etc. And now that's offensive. So now you're not disabled, you're just differently abled. That's not true.
I like how the first half was like, oh, you know, the wacky libs. Yeah, anything you say, they consider ableist. You know, I just want to say some of the most offensive possible things I can about John Fetterman right now. Is that ableist in any way, shape, or form? Again,
you know, last night Oz said that, and I want to get this right, quote, local political leaders should decide whether a woman should be able to get an abortion. Basically, kind of like Doug Mastriano.
Sounds completely fine. Like, and I'm saying that from a perspective of someone who, yes, had trouble watching that debate. It was clearly one in which he was both nervous, uncomfortable, and having difficulty processing and articulating what he was trying to say. There's no question about that. Does that mean that he's unfit to serve? I mean, when this came out, I was like, what the fuck? This has been the biggest thing blown out of proportion. All these people suddenly are armchair doctors. No one worse than Glenn Greenwald. He has been like tweeting nonstop about this. Liberals spent decades suggesting, correctly as it turns out, that Reagan suffered various forms of senility, including the onset of Alzheimer's in his second term, but now they're trying to invent a new rule that is bigoted against disabled people to discuss cognitive impairment. Everyone's discussing it. It's been nonstop. It's like it's one of the biggest topics of this election. One side is like, hey, I've got the puppy torturer, the urine drinking dude who basically stabbed his sister in the skull. I'm not really going to talk much about the issues except that I think, a doctor and a local politician should decide whether or not women have bodily autonomy. That's what I'm about. Oh, my opponent, he's got disabilities, so he shouldn't serve. That's it. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do from now on. I've tried everything else. Nothing else really worked, right? I mean, it's fucking the wheel of political attacks has been spun so many times against Fetterman. Well, let's talk about how he's kind of weird looking. Well, let's talk about how he's friends with Bernie Sanders. Well, let's talk about how he's friends with AOC. Well, let's talk about how he wants to give everyone health care. He's a socialist. Oh, let's talk about how he wants to legalize marijuana. Wait, okay, he wants to legalize all drugs. Well, okay, let's talk about how he wants to forgive and pardon all criminals. Well, let's talk about how he's actually got criminals working on his campaign. None of it was working. And so it's like, okay, crudité, no, I can't do the poor. I can't speak poor. Okay, what do I do now? Let's just say stroke. Yeah, he had a stroke. And the other side is like, yeah, everyone knows. It's been part of the news for a while. He's in recovery. He's currently going through therapy in order to try and, get his ability to express himself back to full capacity. And in the interim, this election is taking place. The election doesn't go on hold for people's medical needs. And so it's all you got now. You know, this is it. I just can't make the gut-wrenching decision to withdraw my husband's candidacy for re-election. Oh, sorry. I just had to make the gut-wrenching decision to withdraw my husband's candidacy for re-election to Congress due to health reasons. I didn't think, oh, as long as he can put his thumb up or down for votes, it's fine. People deserve fully functioning, capable representation. Thank you, Dr. Greenwald. The attempt to render concern about Fetterman's cognitive abilities off limits and even bigoted are similar to the attempts to do the same for Biden. Anyone can compare Biden's abilities now a decade ago, but any attempt to raise concerns was cast as hatred for stutterers. people do this in both directions all the time. People do this towards Trump. People do this towards Herschel Walker. People do this towards Joe Biden. Oh, Joe Biden's senile. Oh, Joe Biden can't speak English. Oh, Joe Biden speaks to ghosts. So Joe Biden shakes the hands of people who aren't there. Stuff like that. This is happening all the time in both directions. Like when Trump was in office, do you remember how many times people were like, oh, he's completely lost his mind. He can't speak English anymore. He's completely high on drugs. He's snorting Adderall. He's snorting cocaine. He needs to take a cognitive ability test. Okay, he took a cognitive ability test, but it was a cognitive ability test intended for children. Blah, blah, blah. Like nonstop. Joe Biden often has no idea where he is often unable to string together two coherent sentences, and has started to fall asleep in the middle of interviews. Why are you so bigoted against people who struggle with the stutter? And by the way, I had to make the gut-wrenching decision to withdraw my husband's candidacy for re-election. Can he also make that decision, or is that a decision that only, like, were you the one who were like, you're not allowed to do this? And he was like, but I want to do this, Glenn. And it's, no, I'm sorry, you cannot. I have a trad husband. Any decent human being, by definition, feels great empathy for Fetterman. It's likely we and or our loved ones will be disabled by illness at some point, but this attempt to invent a new rule that is ableist just to discuss cognitive abilities of candidates is just pathetic. Pathetic. So this is ableist as fuck. If you are saying that you're comparing Fetterman to people with disabilities, and then you're saying that there's a whole bunch of words you can only use. Apparently, it's offensive for me to use the R slur and stuff like that. Yeah, language changes, dum-dum. That's kind of what happens. It's over time, we replace words because we realize and recognize that they can be harmful to the members of communities, stuff like that. So, good news, bad news, by the way. The good news, Fetterman has raised an unprecedented $2 million in less than 24 hours after the debate. Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, the state's Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, announced Wednesday afternoon that his campaign has raised more than $2 million in less than 24 hours following a debate with his Republican opponent, Dr. Mehmet Oz. The campaign has said its latest fundraising numbers indicate unprecedented and massive haul for the Pennsylvania Senate race, following Oz's statements that our local political leaders should have an equal say in decisions about abortion care as pregnant patients and their doctors. So, it seems like the Dr. Oz stating that basically there should be local government officials in charge of women's autonomy, bodily autonomy, is very, very bad for his campaign, and it is causing a very large backlash as well for people who obviously want to have bodily autonomy and other people who want to support people to have bodily autonomy, of which I would probably find myself in that camp. I think women should have bodily autonomy. I know, spicy, hot takes, nuclear takes, cancelable takes. The campaign said it was using the latest fundraising haul to air its new television ad focused on Oz's statement about abortion care. Fetterman has spent several weeks calling on Oz to tell voters whether he should support a 15-week nationwide abortion ban proposed by Senator Lindsey Graham. And following the debate, the campaign said the celebrity doctor belongs nowhere near the U.S. Senate. Our campaign will put money behind making sure Pennsylvania women are as possible here. Dr. Oz's radical belief that local political leaders should have a say in their personal healthcare decisions. Earlier this month, Fetterman raised $1 million a day after the Republican seized on the NBC News debate. Referring to Oz's statement about abortion rights, Fetterman added, for some of the focus on the words that I miss, he really has to say that he had the worst line of that night. It's also true. Now, to the polls, since we now have some aggregate polls. There are a couple polls that have come out that have shown that Oz actually has taken a lead. If you take the aggregate of the polls that are coming out, especially polling data, unfortunately, oh, these ones still don't have any past 21st. Okay, well, this aggregate doesn't have past the 21st of October. We're going to need more advanced. The latest one I saw did show Oz ahead, unfortunately. New Insider Advantage poll for Pennsylvania, Mehmet Oz, 48%, John Fetterman, 45%. Very unfortunate, but not an unclosable gap. So, John Fetterman, Insider Advantage, 750 likely voters, October 26th, margin error, 3.58. Whom would you like to vote? Male, 35%, said John Fetterman. Men, dudes, you're not rocking here, okay? 56% for Dr. Oz. And women, 52% for John Fetterman, 39% for Mehmet Oz. It's the women rock in this one. Age, I think it's probably going to skew Fetterman younger, right? No, Oz younger. Wow, that was impressive. The older you get, though, the more it goes towards Oz. That just makes sense. Until you get to 65 or older. It seems like, hey, boomers. The boomers are all right in this poll. 65 or over, 52% go to John Fetterman. Gender, male, female. In the race for governor of Pennsylvania we held today, whom we vote, it's just a rebrain of the same question. That's the first that I've seen in You can't say that Oz has a 3-point lead, though. You can say in this one poll, Oz is polling higher by 3 points, which is technically correct in a poll that has a margin of error of 3.58. So I'm not entirely sure. I'll wait until we get aggregate polling, to be honest, to actually state whether or not we have a trend there. Obviously, it's unfortunate if there is a poll that shows it. Something else to mention, by the way. The press coverage of Tuesday night debate for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania demonstrates one of the fundamental asymmetries that shape American electoral politics. Right-wing outlets have Republican trust, for better or for worse, are largely staffed with disciplinary partisans dedicated to using propaganda to help their party win elections, while the mainstream outlets Democrats trust, for better or for worse, are not. The results of that phenomenon may be the Democrats' views are more accurately reflect reality, but it also helps explain why Republicans are so successful in setting the terms of the political discussion in Pennsylvania and across the country. The New York Times published a story in its Tuesday edition which framed the Senate debate around the question of the Democratic nominee John Fetterman's health. Under the headline, Fetterman's debate challenges selling policies and proving he's fit to serve. Fetterman suffered a stroke 5 months ago and faces lingering difficulties processing spoken words that require accommodations. The paper made editorial decisions to hone in on one of the main attacks that Republican nominee Mehmet Oz and his allies levy against Fetterman. There was no parallel Times article detailing the challenges Oz faced. The paper could have foregrounded the question of whether or not Oz needed to demonstrate as a wealthy first-time candidate from New Jersey some fluency with the issues facing Pennsylvanians, or whether or not he needed to bat down recent stories about his unethical behavior as a celebrity doctor. It did not. Oh yeah, the double standard for all this is like absolutely outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. Like, on one end, again, we have a person who has committed, in my opinion, incredible amounts of malpractice by promoting dangerous drugs for pay. And has been caught doing that. Drugs that can result in heart palpitations, complications, strokes, that kind of stuff. He's tortured puppies. He is unbelievably wealthy. I believe he's on his, 11th house. I don't understand how a 11 or 10 house owning New Jersey multimillionaire TV scam artist is going to have the interests of local people from Pennsylvania at heart, you know? I mean, I'm not from the Commonwealth, but to me it seems kind of like a no-brainer. But this stuff works. This wasn't just a political miscalculation; it was cruel. Critics say Fetterman's debate was painful. Who thought putting Fetterman out there was a good idea? Watching this debate made us feel sorry. We care. We care for the first time ever. Well, it's nice to see that the right has finally, decided that this is an issue they care deeply about, and they're now going to work hard on combating ableism in all its forms. So, this is good.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.